We have a great set of guys today that I have really become friends with and really respect their business and them personally. And they have an incredible story. They are in a business that I love extremely, extremely well. I really love this business and I love the way these guys do it. And I think they're doing it the smart way because you said it right, Brian. They are building their bank on land they're selling. Ben, Legg, and Greg Phillips, you guys are, how are you?
Well, good. There's Greg. How you doing, Eddie?
So, little history here. You guys don't live anywhere near each other.
Nope. I live South Louisiana.
I'm in Charleston, South Carolina.
You're in Charleston, South Carolina. You're in South Louisiana, and you guys operate in about 3 states, none of which are Louisiana, right, Ben?
All right. Yeah, we both Virginia boys. So we met in Virginia.
Is that a land deal? Can we talk to somebody about a piece of dirt?
It's actually. We might want to get that one. I'll call them back.
So that's awesome. So you guys do it seriously, virtually.
Yeah, we do. We've been virtual, Greg, I guess, for 7 or 8 years, for an extended period of time. So when COVID hit, it really didn't slow us down. Not a whole lot in our business from a structural standpoint changed at all.
All right. So the thing I love about your story, you guys started out, you are every bit the image of an entrepreneur that I see, right? Just like you guys started out, you just kind of plowed your way through it. You had to go figure out stuff. You didn't have a great checklist when you started, did you, Greg?
No. It was tough going for the first 7 or 8 years, but we plowed through, and I think after going through all that, we kind of took a step back and realized what we really wanted for ourselves in the future, and NoteSchool was a huge help for that.
So I got to know these guys. They are in a mastermind with me called Collective Genius. We are both kind of odd couple guys in the mastermind. That mastermind is primarily a bunch of people that are 100 house to 500 house a year house buyers. There's a few apartment guys in there. There's a few land guys like us, and a few note guys like us, and just a few, right? But we hang out there because there's some smart guys and really figured out some systems and processes that are valuable and great relationships. So we got to be buddies there. And then you guys came to NoteSchool because you're saying, how do we kind of 10x our note space? And so I want to just kind of go back a little bit though, and just talk about a little bit of your journey for just a moment, and how you kind of got to where you are even before we met, and then we'll kind of fast forward it and get Joe in the loop on that.
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, specifically, we met probably 2008, 2009. I'd gotten out of the TV business. I was doing TV weather for a number of years, and talk about a tough business. So I moved back to Virginia. Greg and I met and just started throwing stuff at the wall, honestly. I mean, trying to, what everybody does in real estate in the beginning is trying to wholesale and just, imperfect actions, just trying to cash some checks and get some deals done and figure it out. And that's really how we started. And we just stumbled into land, to be honest with you. We were trying the house route, and it was tough sledding. And for every one call we got for a house, we got 10 calls for land. And I just asked the guy one day what he wanted, and we rode out there to Louisa County, Virginia, and looked at it and bought it, and that was it. Started figuring it out from there.
That's great.
Yeah.
So you progress forward. You guys, like, Greg, how would you describe your role versus Ben's role? Is it different? What's it look like?
It's a good give and take. So we understand our markets really well, and I think we're both very visionary and entrepreneur types. I'm much more analytical. I love the spreadsheets, breaking the numbers down. I could do that until 2 a.m. Ben's great with people, relationships, and really the vision as well of the company. So it's been a good give and take, and we work pretty well together. And we've been together for almost 12 years, so that says something in and of itself for running the business.
Yeah, he hasn't fired me yet.
So Joe, we got a real live weatherman on here. You know that, right?
50-50, Eddie. You can't go wrong. 50-50. You're always right, baby.
That's it. In fact, interestingly, when we have a real severe weather situation, Ben is kind enough to pull up his old computer and say, well, here's your odds. In fact, I'm flying to Colorado here in a little while, and they're supposed to have some pretty good thunderstorms when I land, so I may need a little weatherman.
Hey, you know a guy. That's right.
Trying to avoid the mudslide thing. So let's fast forward a little bit. So you guys primarily started buying what I would call infill lots and just vacant land, right? And then that progressed to now you're kind of busting up some land. Let's take us through a little bit of that journey. What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, we started buying rural land, that's typically about 30 minutes to an hour and a half out of a decent sized city. And really for a number of years, the first 5-6 years, we were really primarily focused on wholesaling, and built a big team at that point. And it became, it was a job. It was a grind every month. I mean, we had a, fairly sizable, overhead at that point, that we had to meet. And it was a number of properties just kind of churning through those, and finally got to a place, probably about 2016, I think, where we kind of stopped and just, do we really want to be, 45, 50, 60 years old doing this? And I think we both discovered the answer was no. And that's when we really kind of took our pool of money and just started buying and holding assets and creating notes. And that, I think Greg can speak to that, but our journey for that as meeting you and obviously getting into CG has changed our trajectory of terms of what we focused on, the type of assets we're buying, how we evaluate land. I mean, Greg spent a ton of time this year really getting dialed in on that, actually, a good bit.
Yeah, I think after visiting you in Texas, taking a look at some ranches and really understanding what our underlying asset was, that land, we want, the best quality land that we can have and really bank on both the land as well as the notes on top of it.
Well, guys, we had Mike Powell on, Mitch Stevens, a partner last week. And, he was talking about how he and Mitch have they're moving in that direction as well. And it's a great place because nobody's out there doing it on a level on an NFL level, right? On a professional level.
Yeah, it's, I mean, there's definitely more competition we've seen. Has been an increase, I think, I guess you can call it competition, more people getting into land investing. But as far as doing it the way that we value and the way that we look at it and on a larger scale, there's not nearly as many people doing it, or businesses like if you're flipping homes or being in the house space.
Yeah. Here's a little bit of some history with me. About 30 years ago, I had a lot of people calling me that sold land and owner financed it. They would sell multiple tracts of land. Sometimes they were all together and they just break them into smaller pieces. Sometimes they were scatter lot is another term. You heard me call it infill lots or scatter lots. People would sell land like that. Anyway, they would owner finance land, and so I found that if the finance business really focused on residential housing or commercial real estate, there was a lack of financing for land. That's why so many people would owner finance.
Sure.
And so then I would start making these field trips. A guy would have 50 notes. I'd go out and go see the properties on 50 notes, right? That's just sometimes a smart thing to do. So I took a lot of field trips. And of course, I'm a cowboy. I like being outside. I have an associate's degree in ranch management. You guys know all that. So I like going on these field trips because a lot of these guys were old ranchers or farmers, so I could really relate to them, right?
Mhm.
And then it literally, as far as 30 years ago, I started partnering with people that would originally call me to sell me notes, and then I would partner with them on future development deals, right? And so
Yeah.
I've been involved with land guys for a long time. I love the business. I've met some really good operators, but I consider you guys to be really good operators. You've really figured it out. You're smart. You've been very meticulous in doing your homework. So let's move forward. So now all of a sudden you transition. You were land flippers, just like people flip houses, right? You'd buy them at one price and sell them at a higher price. Then you figured out you could buy the land, and you started figuring out financial techniques where you could keep the land and owner finance it.
Right.
So now let's roll forward. So now all of a sudden you've essentially built a bank. And the good news is you don't have to go sell a piece of land next month to pay the overhead.
That's right. You hit the nail on the head on that one. So it's gone, at least for me personally, I know Greg and I have talked about this a lot, but the first of the month, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, was all the money's going out, all the vendors need to be paid, everything. Now it's money is coming in, and we've learned how to increase, I think, the stability of our portfolio by joining NoteSchool and figuring out, you're good to your bank, like Eddie says, your bank will be good to you. And the only way, in my opinion, to do that is to buy solid assets and place a solid borrower on top of that asset and create a good note.
Yeah, we hear people, we know that we're not the only people that talk about land, but we see a lot of people that deal with what I call junk land. And I'm not a fan. I promise you, I must have seen 10,000 notes on worthless property, right? But the problem is that customer wakes up one day and they won't pay.
Right.
And that's not a bank that will be good to you. So you always start out with a good piece of property. And you guys are really good. You figured out ways to investigate, like is it wetlands? Will it perk, or can you put a septic system on it? Is there electricity? Is there access to all those things that you guys have really dialed in, and you've done it all remote? I mean, you're liable to be 500 miles from where that property is, and what you have figured out is amazing. How do you figure this out?
We've done it 100,000 times, Eddie. That's how we figured it out. We dealt with some of those tracks that you talked about, the quote unquote junk land, and we experienced exactly what you're talking about, and that steered us away from wanting to do owner financing. And so once we figured out the good quality assets, bringing good quality buyers that will continue to pay, that's really what we bank on, and it's been tremendous.
And you guys don't listen for a minute, because I'm going to talk to the audience, okay? I have about 100 tracts of land. If you want you some worthless land, I've got some. I would be happy to let you go get some experience in that. So I have, they say there's two ways that you learn a lesson, fellas: blood and money.
Yeah.
Right? It costs you blood or it costs you money.
That's right.
And so we have a little of that in some of these deals. So let's move forward. You guys have now, what I love about your story is you've now moved into a wealth mode. And now you don't think like you did in 2015. You think more like a wealth thinker and not a transactional thinker. What does that mean when you wake up every day? What's that look like?
I mean, for me personally, it feels like stability and freedom for myself and my family. To me, it means I used to care more about a $20,000 check. Now I care more about $300 a month, because I know what that $300 a month means.
Right.
And it's a hard transition. It was for both of us, I think, in the beginning, because we're so used to having the big checks and the money coming in, quote unquote. And once you start stacking assets and holding assets, because that's what a note is, it starts to compound, and you start to see a balance sheet and run financials and seeing those numbers start to increase, and then get into note school and figure out that you can leverage a portfolio of notes. It's not just cash flow, but you have so many different options that if you learn and educate yourself, you can take advantage of. It's a game changer. I think we've gone from 100 miles an hour. We take our time on properties. We have a much smaller team. Just overall, it just is a completely different feel now than it was.
Greg, how many offers on land do y'all make a week?
Anywhere from about 75 to 100 a week.
Really? Wow.
You see what I'm talking about? And how big is your team?
About 4 and a
Include all
half.
your virtual assistants. How big is your team?
Four.
Yeah.
Well, Greg said 40, Ben. So
Well, 4.
maybe half.
Other than virtual assistants. Yeah.
That's pretty impressive, huh?
Yeah.
They make 75 plus offers a week on land with a staff of 4, including themselves.
Yeah.
You know, go ahead.
When we were wholesaling, we had probably 8, 9 or 10 people. And it was a job. It was a grind. And now, we're getting to the place where we're discovering, we're probably another hire or 2 away from the final and next level. We have some big ideas about what we need. But we never need to go. We're not going to need 30 people on a staff. That's just never going to be what we will need, or what one, to be honest with you, personally.
Yeah, and again, it's going back to that what you said a minute ago, Ben, about to have 300. Get more excited about a check for $300 than a check for a month than a check for $20,000. But the great thing is maybe you can still maybe you don't get the $20,000 check, but maybe you get a $10,000 check or whatever it is. Plus, you get that, so you're just building that bank. As Eddie has always said, just one thin layer of paint at a time, or one thin coat of paint at a time, and that's what it is.
That's it. And
Brian has a good saying. He'll be back on in a minute. I don't want to say it wrong, but it's basically dismiss what the thing that you think is impossible. It's essentially, and that's what I see that you guys, right? When all this stuff seemed impossible to you until it seemed possible.
Yeah.
Right. And so all of us have life experiences that we don't know what we don't know until we know it. I know a fair amount about you guys. And by the way, let me just tell you this. These are great guys. These are people that I would send my own blood to for them to help. And I have, like my son. Right. So literally, I really appreciate these guys and what they know and just their whole mannerism. And I hope maybe my son has brought some things back to you guys that otherwise have maybe helped you win some ideas that, to take it further. It's not that clearly you guys can figure out anything, but speed and efficiency is great. Yeah. But I just appreciate the fact that you guys started out with a transactional mentality. And we all listen to you today, and you definitely don't sound very transactional today. You sound like guys that think 20 years in the future.
100%. Yeah. Before, it's like, how many deals can you do? I think we set goals on numbers of deals, but it's not important anymore. That we rather do way less deals, quality product, a quality, note. And the fact that we're out of wholesaling, we still wholesale some, but it's very limited because now we can probably 3 to 5x. Would you say, Greg, in terms of a wholesale deal?
Absolutely. Either, day one or over the life of it. It's just, we have a lot more options now. So many more options. That's really it.
Ben, you said something that I really like. It was, you talked about, the financial freedom and, the other freedoms, but you said the mental freedom of knowing that you've got checks stacked up every month coming in. As an old mentor of mine said, money has an end, cash flow is continuous.
That's right. Yeah. I didn't really realize how much I was thinking about work while on the weekends. it's given me mental freedom. Greg and I have talked about this a lot. I've purposely done things that my wife and I have talked about. Like I've got a personal cell phone now. I've got a desktop computer that sits at my office. Like nothing comes home with me. I still think about stuff, but it's just not the same. It's an easier, I have less going on in my head, which is always nice.
Hey, Joe, I'm going to tell you something. Siri does not know which phone I'm calling. Okay.
Yeah, you got both.
He's not making that up. Sometimes we will have a personal issue, and I'm trying to reach him, and like I've called his work phone, and I don't realize it because it
was a big deal. It's a big thing for me. Greg and I had talked at CG about this, last month, and I told him I've been promising my wife for 7 years that I would get it. I finally did, and it's made a big difference just for me personally.
Your business is good enough to you can leave it at the office.
They can stay here.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Let's bring Brian back in. And if you guys can stay around, we'll do the after party, and I bet there'll be some questions.
Yeah, I'll absolutely love it, man. We'll do. I got to say two things. First of all, there is what Eddie was talking about. I'd love to be the one that says that I came up with this saying. I just kind of copy it. But it's all about suspending your disbelief. Every time you think something's impossible, that's probably the thing you should be entertaining, right? Because maybe there's something there. Because like Eddie said, you don't know what you don't know. And what's fascinating about land to me is that nobody thinks about it. And if they think about it, it's because they've done what I've done. And you've just been wholesaled some land and you're like, I mean, they're not making any more of it, right? Isn't that the saying? And so you buy something and you realize, man, I don't know what I'm doing. And so you don't really make a lot of money on it, right? But a little education can go a long way. And that's what I love so much about your story is that this really can be simple with some help. That instead of being like, I'm going to try to figure out on my own, being the prideful investor who said, I'll just Google my way through this. You said, I'm going to reach out and find somebody who's an expert in this and I'm going to go crush it. And you happen to find a guy who's done 50,000 deals. And so, when you got 40 years of knowledge, you know a thing or two, right?
That's right.
Yeah, because you've seen a thing or two.
Yeah,
I think it's like anything else. If you put your mind to it and you really have the ability and desire to do it, then you're going to do it. I mean, Greg and I, we didn't know how to buy a piece of land. I didn't even know what an easement was. I mean, I literally, I remember sitting in a closing, one of the first closings, and the attorney said, well, we don't have an easement. I was like, okay, I don't know.
Does that make me less profit then? Is the easement where the money is?
So did you know what a perk test was?
No.
I bet Greg knew what a perk was.
Oh yeah, it has to do with coffee and coffee beans. I know all that.